Good morning, students. Today we'll discuss about temperature as an important factor in ecology. Temperature is a measure of degree of heat. The radiant energy received from the sun is converted into the heat energy and it is measured in calories. The temperature at which the organism it shows maximum physiological activity is known as the optimum temperature. The minimum, optimum and maximum temperature are called as the cardinal temperature. The cardinal temperature varies from species to species and in the same individual from time to time in the life cycle. The distribution of plants, animals are also influenced by the temperature. So various effect of temperature on the plants as well as the animals they are seen. The effect on cell and protoplasm. In the extreme low temperature, the protoplasm may be frozen, or as well as in the case of the extreme high temperature, the protoplasm they may coagulate. So the effect on the metabolism is there. In the presence of different enzymes, various metabolic processes they take place in the living organism. Slight change in the temperature, it will affect the enzyme activity. Slight increase in the temperature, it increases the metabolic activity, but more increase in the temperature that decreases the metabolic activity. Then the influence on the respiration. The rate of respiration usually doubles as per the Van Hoff's law, that is increase in the temperature by 10 degree in case of the poikilothermal animals. Then in effect on the development of plants as well as the animals is influenced by the temperature. The development of egg, the larva is higher in the hot climate as compared to the colder climates. Then the effect on the growth. When the temperature is slightly increased, the poikilothermal animals as well as the invertebrates, they show the increase in the growth. Seedlings, they also show increase in the length of the hypocotyle. Then the effect on the transpiration in the case of the plant. Transpiration is a process where the loss of water is there from the aerial parts of the plants. The rate of transpiration, it is increased if the temperature is more. Effect on the reproduction, maturation of gonads and the gametes that requires a particular or specific temperature which varies from species to species. The animals, they have got different breeding periods and the maturation of the gonads, they occur at the different times. So temperature, it influences the breeding or the reproduction in the case of the animals. Effect on the sex ratio. The sex ratio in poikilothermal animals is determined by the temperature. That is, the considerable increase in the number of male individual is there when there is a increase in the temperature. Then the effect on the morphology. As per the Jordan's rule, the fish living in the low temperature water region, the number of the vestibules is more than the counterparts living in the high temperature of water. As per the principle of Bergman rule, the homothermal animals of the cold climate are larger in size. They have more body mass as compared to the individual living in the warmer places. A quite good example is the polar bear. Then even in the case of the Allen's rule, the extremities, they tends to be longer if the temperature is higher, and the extremities, they tend to be shorter in the case of the cold conditions. That affects the morphology of the individual. Then the effect of coloration. As per the principle of Glogger's rule, the body color of animal is influenced by the temperature. In the hot and humid climate, the birds and the mammals, they have darker pigmentation than their counterparts in the dry and cold climate. There is a thermal stratification shown in the case of the water, in the case of the lakes, ponds. That is, as we move deeper, the temperature it changes. As a result of which, if on the upper layer the temperature is suppose 0 degrees centigrade, the individuals, they cannot live because it's a frozen atmosphere. But as we go deep into that very water lake only, the temperature it increases, maybe 10, 20, 30. So the animals, they can live below in the lower layer. This process of variation of temperature in different layers of water is known as thermal stratification, which makes the animal livable in the case of the colder condition. So temperature below 6 degree are lethal to most plants and the animals. And this temperature, if it is not increased, the organisms, they will die. So the upper lethal temperature for most plant ranges from the 45 to 50 degrees centigrade. So lower is 6 degree, higher is 45 to 50 degrees. The temperature of even 35 to 40 degree can cause damage if the persistent longer duration of increased temperature is there. So high temperature is not as destructive to plants as the low temperature. Prolonged moisture supply is adequate to the prevention of the wilting in the case of the high temperature. That is why in the case of the deserts, the cactus, they have got the varied wilting coefficient as compared to the arid plants. So the temperature, it strongly affects the phenology, the vegetative growth, the fruit growth, and the respiration, water low and water use, leaf photosynthesis, uptake of nutrients and water. Then is the translocation of the carbohydrates. Whereas the moderate effects, it includes the photosynthesis on the canopy basis. Two types of individuals, they are there regarding the temperature. One is eurythermal, second is stenothermal organism. Eurythermal organism, they are those which can tolerate broad range of the temperature, whereas the stenothermal organisms, they cannot tolerate the broad range. They live in a narrow range of temperature and they die if the temperature it changes. For example, in the case of eurythermal, we can consider man, lizard, whereas in the case of stenothermal, we can consider the coral reefs as well as the snail. Then is the hibernation, is because of the temperature condition. Hibernation, estivation, migration of various animals. So these behavior or these adaptations, they are shown by the organism in order to overcome the harsh environment. So poikilothermal and homothermal animals, they also varies in the temperature range. Those animals which cannot change their body temperature because of change in the outside temperature, they are known as the poikilothermal animals, whereas the homeothermal animals, they are those which can make their internal temperature constant whether the outside environment temperature is changing or not. For example, in this case we can say homeothermal individuals, they are birds and mammals, whereas poikilothermal individuals, they are amphibians and reptiles. So these individuals, they show variation because of the temperature. So we have studied already the Bergman rules. Bergman rules, what it says, if the temperature is low, the body mass is higher, right? And then we have studied the Allen's rule, which shows that if the temperature is higher, the extremities, they are longer. So all those individuals who are living in the warmer areas, they have got long tail, long snout, long ears, long legs, right? So extremities, they are longer in the case of the Allen's rule. Then Glogger rule, as I've told you, it affects the pigmentation. That is, if we are living in high temperature and dry condition, the color pigmentation is more. Then the effect of temperature on the distribution. The temperature is a limiting factor on the distribution of animals. The distribution of warm-blooded animal is not affected much by the temperature, but the cold-blooded animals, their distribution is depending upon the temperature in the. So the temperature, it affects the opening and the closing of flowers. Then the seeds of some of the plants, they require for their germination the winter season. They germinate in the spring or the summer season, but their seeds, they require the winter season before germination. This process is known as vernalization, and artificially it can be induced to germinate the seeds in the summer. Then the deciduous trees, they lose their leaves during the winter and enter into the state of dormancy, where the buds, they are covered for protection against the cold. In the case of deserts, the temperature variation is greater during the day and night time. So the organism, they shows their more activity during the night. They become nocturnal or they become vesperal. That is, they are active during early morning or late evenings. So in this way, we can say the temperature, it affects the organism. I hope the concept is clear. Thank you.